Hello, friends. Welcome to the Mighty Blaze Blazing Book Rec show for June. My name's Mary Weber O'Malley. I'm here with Ellen Commissar, and we are two of the Blazers. For any of you who aren't familiar with the Blaze, A Mighty Blaze was founded in the early days of COVID by Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt, who got together when all of these authors' book tours were abruptly canceled. And they started hosting the authors on social media to get their books out there. And that little partnership grew into A Mighty Blaze, which has grown into a wonderful group of shows every week. You can go to our website and see all of our weekly shows. You can see all the hosts. You can sign up for our newsletter so that you don't ever miss an event or an interview. We have interviewed David Duchovny, George Saunders, James Comey. Twice. James actually asked to come back.
Yes.
Tommy Orange. The list goes on and on and on. So we have great shows. We have 2 debut shows. We have a Lit Fic show. We have our Friday Frontliner series, The Thoughtful Bro. And then we have, we have Crime Time and other assorted shows that we just throw in here and there willy-nilly, like the Blazing Book Rec show that we do once a month. We will be skipping July because July 4th, I think we'll all be out enjoying picnics and barbecues and fireworks. So I'm going to throw a couple of July titles into my list. Hello to everyone who's joining. So I'm excited to be here. Ellen, you've got a great list too for tonight.
I do. I've got some books that are just out this week and some that are coming in early July and a couple that have been out a bit but are just crossing my desk now.
Excellent. And almost all of these books, I just threw a couple more onto my stack. Almost all of them can be found at our bookshop stall. I'm going to try and get that link into the chat because I know sometimes it's hard to find our bookshop stall, but you can always find it very quickly and easily from our website. So bookshop.org is the indie alternative to the big A, and we like to support indies here at A Mighty Blaze. I'll also share with you that Libro.fm for our audiobook listeners. If you subscribe to the big A, Libro.fm costs the same. Your credits never expire. You can listen across devices. Once you purchase an audiobook, you get to keep it forever. You get book recs from booksellers like myself, and they are a social purpose company, so they put social causes above profits. So Libro.fm, I'll get that into the comments too. So I am, aside from being a Blaze host and an author liaison and scheduler, I am also a bookseller, a virtual bookseller for Skylark Bookshop in Columbia, Missouri, even though I live outside Chicago. And so, I'm an avid reader, and I've got this huge stack of books. Ellen, do you want to start? You want me to start? How do you want to do this?
I'll let you start, and then I can throw some things in the comments while you're talking.
Excellent. That sounds great. So oftentimes we have other Blazers here. Hi, Julie. Hi, Robin. Hi, Kim, and everybody else joining. Feel free to post questions in the chat. And, if you have read any of these books or heard of these books, feel free to chat about that too. So I'm going to start with a nonfiction title, a collection of essays. This is... You have that one?
No, but you said I was going first.
Oh, go for it. Go, Ellen. I'll put stuff in the chat while you talk.
There you go.
All right.
So my first book is Pink Whales by Sarah Shukla. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but Pink Whales starts with an epigraph to the Preppy Handbook which came out in 1980, for those of you who are old enough to remember it. And this book takes us into the 21st century. We have a woman who is married to a doctor. She's sort of given up her career because they have twins, and they move to New England, where he's taking a new position. His boss is an ex-girlfriend, little complication, and she is immediately thrust into a culture she has never seen but has read about. So she refers to people like their Navy Stripe is the woman who she meets the first time in her crisp outfit with her perfect ponytail in the ice cream shop where the protagonist's children are wreaking havoc. And she gets swept up into this group of friends in the yacht club and the beach club, and perhaps a little romance. It's very funny. It's a light summer read, but really well written. I've been laughing out loud. And whether you've been to New England or just heard the rumors, this one rings very true. It just came out this week, Pink Whales. This book, on a more serious note, is Clara's Truth by Susan Weisbach Friedman. I always get her name mixed up. And this is a debut novel by a woman who is a psychologist, I believe, in the New York City area. And she has written a story about a woman whose father kind of abandoned the household when she was young. And her mother gets some mail that says, gee, people who had family or were in Poland can collect a lot of money if they came out from the war, that the Polish government is trying to track down these people. And the mother says to her daughter, you should go find these people and find out the information so that we can get this money, even though the mother and father have long been estranged. And so it's a story of a woman who goes to Poland, starts doing research, starts meeting people who are distant family members, and trying to collect remuneration based on their history during World War II. Debut novel, lovely writer. You'll probably see her on social media a bit. You can look her up on YouTube. She's doing a lot of social media and videos. So really good. My next book is, I have to read the back cover to you because it's kind of unusual. This is the Bulgarian Training Manual. And
love that cover.
And the cover sort of gives a lot of it away in a sense. This is by a woman named Ruth Bonipace, I believe it's pronounced. And this is a comic novel that tells the story of Christina Aquilina Bontempi, also known as Tina, who is living in Hoboken and gets handed a very secret Bulgarian training manual at her gym, and is told she has to keep it secret. And you get details about this training manual, and ultimately, in somewhat a mysterious and quizzical fashion, she finds herself on a trip to Bulgaria, where she becomes the spokesmodel for this gym. And this is a quirky novel. You have to be in the right mood. I was in the perfectly right mood for this book. It's a sly look, it says, at self-improvement, our self-doubts, and our fervent dreams, and our internal yammering. Those who follow the Bulgarian training manual add more than muscle, they become poets. And it's just an interesting book. It's got a lot of little twists. It's funny. It has pages that replicate the pages of this training manual, as it were. A lot of fun. I recommend it. And that
sounds wild and weird and wonderful.
All at the same time. Now, I don't have covers of some of these books because I listen a lot on audio. So here you go. This is First Love by Lucy Danziger, I believe she pronounces it. And this is a book of essays, mostly about her friendships and about a cousin who, I'm not giving anything away. Her cousin has been murdered, and they're like best buddies as kids growing up. And so there's a lot of that theme running through this, of what she can write about, what she's willing to write about. But it's about a young woman who is finding her way through this tragedy with the help primarily of her girlfriends, who come and rescue her and sit on her balcony in I think in West Village at the time, and crawl out onto this very narrow metal balcony, which they figured out how to get out onto while holding their wine and their phones and everything, even though it's pretty treacherous. And they sit up there and figure out life a bit and figure out their jobs and their romances, but mostly become great friends. And so she talks about the love of female friends, but it's dedicated, and the through line is her cousin, who she refers to as her first love. That it was just this, the two of them could not get enough of each other. They were a couple years apart, and she, took her to the clubs when she was underage and got her all dressed up for the parties she introduced her to, and told all her friends about her great cousin before and then ultimately after her passing. Very pretty book. Very different book, more in line with Clara's Truth, is Mitch Albom's The Little Liar, which may be out in paperback now. I'm listening to it, which is great because Mitch Albom himself is doing the narration, and he does a wonderful job telling the story with different voices. And this is a story that's not told a lot. It's about the Jews of Salonika, Greece, who had as horrific a time as the Jews of Italy, Hungary, Poland, Austria, etc., Germany. And it's about one family. The Little Liar refers to a young boy who was always known as telling the truth. And he gets pulled in by a difficult German Nazi leader who realizes that this boy will tell people what they tell him, that he'll believe it's true. And so he's a little bit complicit in sending the Jews of Salonika off on the trains because he's promising them a wonderful life, which, as we know, doesn't happen. They end up in Auschwitz. And it also follows his brother and a woman who is both he and his brother are attracted to. The woman's attracted more to this little liar than to the brother. And then this German officer. And what's fascinating about this is that it starts with a parable that says that when God was creating the earth and mankind, he asked various angels whether or not human beings should be created. And all of the angels say, now I got to get this right. The angels say yes, with the exception of the angel of truth, who says, no, that's not a good idea. This book is now, and as a result, the angel of truth gets sent down to earth to be among humankind. And the angel of truth is the narrator of this book. And so telling the story of these four main characters whose lives go through lots of tragedy, hardship. It's, for those of you who have read any Holocaust literature, this is up there with the best of them. For the fictional literature, it rings very true. And I've read a lot of it, and I'm learning many, many things, not just about how the Jews of Greece were treated, but just about what the life was like and what the Jews who were made to work in certain ways in the camps suffered through. So excellent book. And one book that's coming soon. Whoops, I wish I could make this bigger. There we go. Our Kind of Game by Johanna Copeland. It's a debut mystery. It's very good. I read it early, and it's a story of a family and mistaken identities and a mysterious disappearance of the men. You're hearing my dog chime in on that in the background. The mysterious disappearance of the men who one of the women's mothers befriends, dates, takes in, and then at some point the guys get kind of creepy and then disappear. Yeah, you're getting chills there. And then there's a whole other story that connects, and I'm not going to give anything more away, but it's a real you're not sure what's happening. It also is an interesting take on sort of social classes, because the women who are quote unquote having disappearing men are certainly struggling financially, and the women who are you meet later are in a much better social economic class, and going to the fancy school events where they're having fancy baskets auctioned off for lots and lots of money. Very good read, a nice debut. That's coming early July. And coming later this month, we all love her, Joyce Maynard is back with How the Light Gets In. This is a sequel to Count the Ways, so you have time now to read Count the Ways, which I really recommend. I led a couple book groups with it, and at the end of the first book group, everyone was saying, what do you think happens to this family? And where do they go next? And so we were busy, hypothesizing. And then I find out that Joyce is actually busy writing. So she wrote Count the Ways. She's then came out most recently with The Bird Hotel. She comes on the Blaze all the time. I am super excited because I've been following her since she was 18 and on the cover of the New York Times Magazine as the representative of what the youth today are thinking. I was a little younger than she was, and I was fascinated with her then. And I will say something like 50 years have passed, approximately, and I'm still fascinated by her. And it'll be a great interview. That's going to be a Friday frontliner on June 28th. It's the last Friday of the month, and it will be at 7 p.m. Eastern. So I'm stepping away from my debut spotlight role to do a Friday frontliner, and lots of people on the Blaze have already interviewed her, and that's the only reason somebody said, oh, maybe we should have a different host. And I'm just honored and excited. I have not read this new one yet. It's coming up on my to be read list, and I will read it before the show. But I encourage everybody, if they haven't already, go read Count the Ways, introduce yourself to this family. That's a great book too, and you will not be disappointed. That's all I have.
Fantastic. I didn't even think about until the last few. I've been trying to type them into the comments so people can jot them down.
And I will do the same now for you.
All right. I have
here to help us.
I have a big stack, as I always do, but I'll try. It's like speed dating. I'll try and get through them all. The first one is a collection of essays by Ann Leary. I love Ann Leary's writing, whether it is fiction or nonfiction. I especially love her nonfiction. Her husband is Dennis Leary, but Ann is a phenomenal writer, and this is a collection of essays. Ann is a lifelong people pleaser. She doesn't just need people and animals to like her, but to love her. And there are these two women who walk by Ann's property on a regular basis, and they keep letting their dogs run loose, which makes Ann's dogs behave badly. And Ann keeps asking them, can you please leash your dogs and keep them off my property? And the next thing she knows, she's driving down. These dogs are all over her property again, making her dogs crazy. And so she looks at these women and she's like, I have tried being nice. And that's a turning point for Ann. So this is just a whole series of essays of being a woman of a certain age, making her way in the world, trying to get along and get on with people. And I loved this collection so much. So that is title number 1. Number 2, this is a follow-up. You don't have to read the first one, but it will only enhance your reading experience if you do. Yes, we are, Kelly. We are all tired of being nice, especially Gen Xers. We're like, enough already. This is Service by Sarah Gilmartin, and this slim little, perfect for throwing in your beach bag, in your carry-on, in your purse. This takes place in an upscale Dublin restaurant as the current and former employees grapple with the fallout from a shocking scandal involving its head chef. It's 3 points of view. It is the chef, the wait staff, the one woman who was waiting tables, and then the head chef's wife. and the chef is accused of sexual misconduct. Oh my gosh, I just found this absolutely riveting to read with the 3 points of view. And toward the end, I thought it was going to go one way, and holy cow, she packs a punch in this slim little novel. That's number 2. Number 3 is the current Jenna pick, and I read this probably 8-9 months ago. I have never forgotten this main character. She will live with me forever. This is Swift River by S.E. Chambers. The main character is Diamond, and Diamond is used to people making fun of her. They laugh at her because she is very overweight. Her dad disappeared years ago. She and her ma hitchhike all over in this small dying mill town. The other thing that sets Diamond apart is she is the only Black person in this town since her dad disappeared. It's coming of age. It's finding your roots, because eventually Diamond gets a letter from an aunt, her father's sister, and discovers this entire other side of the family that she didn't know about. I read a lot of books, and honestly, sometimes I'll remember loving a book, but I won't really remember the story. I will never forget the story or the characters of Swift River, S.E. Chambers. All right, here is one. This took me a little bit to really kind of fall into. I just found it very bleak in the beginning, and then I was completely on board. This is Margot's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe. She's the author of The Knockout Queen. Margot has a plan for herself, and that gets derailed when she discovers she's pregnant. And then she decides she's going to have the baby, and she's living with this roommate, and Margot thought she'd be able to do this and quickly realizes that trying to have a baby by herself is really difficult. Her father is an ex-professional wrestler. He comes into play. Margot kind of comes up with a scheme to make some money. She gets into OnlyFans, and it's just so well done. It's got amazing dialogue. It's got a story that just clips along. And I, by the end of it, found myself physically and emotionally rooting for Margot. I just wanted her to triumph. This is a woman who takes a different path. This is Anna Bright is Hiding Something by Susie Orman Schnall. And oh my word, The Dropout meets Inventing Anna. And that is perfect. It's a ripped from the headline story set in the glossy offices of Silicon Valley startups and New York City new media. It explores our fascination with female founders, breaking barriers, and sometimes behaving badly in the process. Anna Bright has started this incredible company. They are getting all kinds of cash infusions to develop this technology, and they're about to go public. And things behind the scenes are a little more chaotic than you might realize looking at it from the outside. I tore through this book, absolutely tore through it. Didn't want to put it down for a second. Anna Bright is Hiding Something. All right, this one probably does not need me to talk too long about it because you've seen it everywhere. Same as It Ever Was by Claire Lombardo. Claire wrote The Most Fun We Ever Had. That came out a few years ago. That was her debut. That was a huge book. This is a huge book. And yet the way Claire writes, you just fall into the story. She writes family dynamics. She writes long-term marriages. She writes, being a parent after your kids have flown the nest and what that's like. this has been all over social media. Honestly, so many sophomore books, and I understand why they just don't live up to those debuts. This one does. Claire knows what she's writing. It is an incredible, this is one you're just going to want to take and sit on the beach for hours and lose yourself in the pages. Same as it ever was, Claire Lombardo. All right, I'm going to go a little lighter now. And these have all been June releases. Going to hit you with a little romance. So I am a mood reader, and if I'm going through something heavy in my personal life, or I've just read a heavy book, I need something light. I need something I don't have to think hard about, but that will just pull me into the story. There's statistics showing that people with anxiety are drawn to romance novels because you have a guaranteed happy ending, no matter where the book goes. And sometimes I need that. And sometimes I just want my heart to be filled with happiness and warm fuzzies. And these next books gave me that completely. So The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. Pure unvarnished delight is what it was advertised as. And it was. From the very first pages, I was pulled in. It has that lovely dialogue. It's got, all the tropes that you love. It's a woman who is obsessed with rom-coms. She has written several screenplays, and some have won awards, but she hasn't been able to do anything with that talent because she's the sole caregiver for her father, who needs round-the-clock care. When an opportunity drops into her lap to fix a rom-com that her favorite screenwriter of all time has written but stinks. Mm-hmm. And of course, she has to go, live with him in his LA mansion in order to get this thing written. And they don't like each other. They don't like each other at all. Forced proximity, enemies to lovers, all these wonderful tropes. I just found myself smiling through this entire book. And like I said, sometimes that's just what my heart and soul need. And I got it with this. My other romance title is One Star Romance by Laura Hankin. She is proving herself to be such an incredibly diverse author. So she wrote If You're Happy and You Know It, that was her debut. A woman who is on like a kids TV show, or she does story time and sing-alongs with little preschoolers, toddlers, and becomes a nanny for one of the families. That was her first one. Then she also wrote The Daydreams, which was about a young group of TV stars who, had a band as well. That was a little more drama. And now she's got One Star Romance. And Laura herself, my husband and I I can't even remember which movie it was. We were watching some movie and they had just a brief look at somebody in a band. And I was like, that's Laura Hankin. And I texted her. I was like, did I just see you in this movie? And she's like, yes. So she's got some behind the scenes knowledge of these kinds of things. This is a struggling writer is forced to walk down the aisle at her best friend's wedding with the man who gave her book a very public 1-star rating in this fresh romantic comedy. So again, friends to enemies to lovers trope there. Laura is a delight to read. I know whatever she writes, I am going to enjoy, and this was no exception. I do want to give a quick props, shout out, thank you to Ellen for all the talking up you did for Whale Fall, because I listened to that on Libro, and the narrating took it
Fabulous.
to next level. Next, I wanted to go out for my walk no matter how hot it was, because I was going to have that narrator's voice in my ear telling me that story. So Whale Fall.
Anyone who likes, it's the secluded island story.
Yep.
It's a coming of age story.
Yep.
It's being looked at and how others look at you and how that makes you look at yourself.
Yep.
And the writing is gorgeous.
Gorgeous. And the narrating is exquisite.
I may have to listen to it. I may have to go back and listen to it. And it sort of sounds like, and we should discuss this, the other book, and I've not read it yet, is Clear.
Yes.
Yet?
Yes.
It's also set on an island.
Yes.
That one's, I think, Scottish, and it's about.
Yep.
And they're similar in the fact that the one island in Clear only has one resident, and they're trying to get him to move. This other island in Whale Fall has like 37 people still living there.
Yeah.
And they're actually trying to keep their young people from getting too enamored by what's happening on the mainland. And our protagonist in that is torn between what does she want, and she sees people going, and she, I will say, and I read a ton of books always, that may be the most beautiful book I've read, period, full stop, end of sentence. And it's thin.
Then I can tell you that listening to it,
I'll have to do that. I'll go back and listen to it again. I'll listen to it.
I think it's going to give you like a whole nother way to view the book, to hear, oh my gosh, the narrator is just over the top good. And Clear, yes, Clear is, I love those small town islands, not small town, but those, sparsely populated island. I've always been fascinated with what would it be like to live in one of those. So yeah, both. So Clear, and I can't think of the authors.
I'll look it up.
Okay, Ellen will look at it. It's Clear. It just came out, and it's historical fiction set around the Scottish clearings, which I didn't know anything about. But at one point, the wealthy landowners allowed people to live on their land and farm the land. And then when it became clear that there was more money to be made in raising sheep, the landowners sent people. Yes, that is it. They sent people to clear the land and clear these islands of all of their farmers. And they may have been farming there for generations. They cleared them off the land and said, see ya, bye.
The story of this book, I mean, lots of people have raved about it. I'm looking at Amazon. Vogue's best book of the year. New York Times said it was daring and necessary, sophisticated and playful. And it's by, I won't pronounce the name right, Carys Davies, Carys. And what's fascinating about this is the story, and I won't be giving anything away, is the person who comes to clear the land meets up with this singular man who's still living there. The visiting man has an accident, hurts himself, and is then cared for by the resident. And where it gets most complicated is the resident speaks a different language that nobody speaks anymore. And so they are figuring out how to communicate with each other while, the man who presumably was going to be the villain in the story becomes the cared for. And it's supposed to be gorgeous.
And it's another very slim novel that's just packed with story.
Oh, my dog needs to make a cameo.
Oh, hello, puppy. Mine is sound asleep.
I wish mine were too.
I have 2 July picks. And anybody who's tuning in, I am on Instagram on Blurb Your Enthusiasm, or at Blurb Your Enthusiasm. you can follow me there, and I do weekly book talks for Skylark. So each week, these books I'll be talking about and others in July. So you can follow along there. But these two July books are just absolutely outstanding, and I recommend going to your local indie or to our bookshop stall and pre-ordering these for when they come out. The first one is the Wedding People, and this is by Allison Espach. So Espach, Allison with one L. It's waves with a woman's hands up, and in one is a bottle of champagne and the other one is a peace sign. Wow. So I'll read a little from the back. This is another book I will not soon forget. The two main characters are incredible. So it's a beautiful day in Newport, Rhode Island, when Phoebe Stone arrives at the Grand Cornwall Inn wearing a green dress and gold heels, not a bag in sight. She's immediately mistaken by everyone in the lobby for one of the wedding guests who have taken over the hotel, but she's actually the only one who isn't here for the big event. Phoebe is here because she's dreamed of coming for years. She had hoped to shuck oysters and take sunset sails with her husband. Only now she's here alone, at the lowest moment of her life. Meanwhile, the bride has accounted for every detail and every possible disaster the weekend might yield, except for Phoebe, which makes it that much more surprising when the women can't stop confiding in each other. Soon Phoebe is swept into the lives and the dysfunction of the wedding people, finding herself forever changed. Again, the dialogue between these two women is absolutely incredible. Where the plot takes you, I probably wouldn't be giving a spoiler. I'm just going to say the reason Phoebe's there and what throws everything into a complete uproar, it becomes clear just a couple of pages in. And I just kept thinking, where the hell is this going to go? How is this going to play out? And then even as it moved along and I see the bride and Phoebe interacting, I still couldn't figure out how this was going to play out. This is just a delightful summer read. Absolutely loved. And my next one, and I know Ellen she's going to chime in on this one too. This may be the novel of the summer. It is huge. It has been talked about for months and months. I forget how many publishing houses were fighting to get the rights sold in something like 17 countries. It was crazy. I mean, and I don't like to hear that hype ahead of time, because then I kind of go, oh, what if it doesn't live up to it? This one did.
It's a debut also.
It's a debut. Just incredible. Unbelievable that this is a debut. The Days I Loved You Most by Amy Neff. If you're a fan of, I don't want to be mean. I guess you could say if you're a fan of Nicholas Sparks or Jojo Moyes, but that almost cheapens what this is, because this is so special. So special. Joseph and Evelyn fell in love in the summer of 1941 on the New England shores where they were raised. Now, more than 60 years later, they've gathered their 3 adult children to share some staggering news. Evelyn has received a tragic diagnosis, and Joseph cannot live without her. So in 1 year's time, they will end their lives on their own terms. What follows is a sweeping story of love, family, grief, and hope as the couple follows a year of looking back and living for the moment. But as their final days grow closer, the beginning celebrated, the middle cherished, the most urgent question must be answered: how will their story end? So beautifully written. The family dynamics at play in here, these characters, I just felt like, I knew them. I truly knew them. I felt like I was in that house watching what was going on. I was on the shores with them. Have a box of tissues
Yes.
handy. I cried multiple times reading this, not just at the end, but throughout. It's just so beautiful.
I really loved, especially because it's set current times, but then you step back to when this long married couple were teenagers and just meeting each other and, quote, necking on the dock kind of stuff. And then you have sort of the early life when they were off doing their own thing and connect. And it's just so the historical aspects, the historical fiction part of it got me almost as much, if not more, than the contemporary story. So it's a nice blend. It's a contemporary story with lots of real life, current issues that anyone who has aging parents can identify with, or who is an aging parent, probably. But it also has, then it weaves in this sort of backstory, which was very compelling, and how this couple came to get together to begin with, and what their difficulties were as a couple. And it's a beautiful book. I am hoping,
so beautiful.
Fingers crossed, if you're out there listening, Amy Neff's publicist, I have an email out to you. I'm trying to get you on Debut Spotlight. So I'd hope to get her on. The book comes out July 31st. And I do know that Amy has a very booked schedule that week and the following. She will be touring. And I'm sure we'll see her on many television shows.
I'm sure we will. I imagine we'll see something announced about which book club chooses her book too. And so those are my titles. I do want to say, though, next week I have, so a week ago, I got the absolute honor of interviewing,
Annie
oh my
Lamott.
God, why did I just, thank
Annie
you.
Lamott.
God, Annie Lamott. If you missed that interview and you want to check it out, you can go to A Mighty Blazes YouTube channel. We had a wonderful discussion there. And next Thursday, going in a completely different direction, I will be interviewing Adam Nimoy, the son of Leonard, Live Long and Prosper, Spock. This is his memoir. I think he wrote another memoir as well. And it's about his difficult relationship with his father. His father had substance abuse issues. Adam also developed substance abuse issues. So there's a lot going on in this book. And I look forward to talking to Adam about
And what's the name of this book?
Oh, thank you. It's called The Most Human by Adam Nimoy. And I think it
mentioned
came
this
out a couple days ago.
I have mentioned this book before, but my next interview is on June 13th at 2 p.m. Corey Ledbetter, who was a MFA student at Columbia, and he was offered the opportunity to interview to become an author's assistant. And he says, okay, I'll go for that interview. Why not? I could use some cash. And the author is Joan Didion. And it's a beautiful book. You talk about beautiful writing. He spends 9 years.
9 years. I'm listening to it right now.
Do you love it?
I love it. His writing is, oh my gosh.
I'm, as those of you who watch The Blaze know, we're picking books months and months ahead of time to get our calendar locked in. So we're usually reading, advanced reader copies, and we get them through various sources, and sometimes from the publicists reach out to us and say, hey, here's a book. I happened upon this one. I'm a big Joan Didion fan. In fact, she's my best New York City celebrity sighting. I once walked past her in Central Park with a very good friend, and we're like, is that Joan Didion? That's Joan Didion. And being cool New Yorkers, we just said, hi, Joan, and kept walking because you don't want to, gush too much in Central Park. But I got this book, and I like the title, Uptown Local, which you take the #1 train. I get that. And I read about 30 or 40 pages just to be sure that the first 10 weren't a fluke, because the first 10 pages are just so gorgeous. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is really something. I think people who are fascinated by Joan Didion will like it. People who just want to understand that relationship of what it's like to be the assistant to a very famous and ultimately aging and dying author of great renown and a total, New York City icon as well as a literary icon. Really great book. I have to reread it this week, and I'm really looking forward to it. But that'll be Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Corey Ledbetter.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So lots of great stuff coming up. Like I said, go to our website, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yes.
Still Twitter.
I know. I still call it Twitter.
X. So do I. I'm the Twitter director. I'm not going to be the X director.
The X director.
Exactly.
Queen of the X Files.
Yes.
So yeah, there's lots of great stuff coming up, and you can follow us on all those channels, subscribe to our newsletter, and you will be sure not to miss anything. If you do miss something, we also have our podcast anywhere you find your podcasts with some of our great interviews put into that form. And you can watch all of our past interviews on our YouTube channel. But I hope that we have filled your summer reading schedule with amazing titles. And we will be back here in August with some more. Yes. Between now and then, everybody have a wonderful start to summer, and we'll see you around.
Take care. Happy reading.